well then, who created God? For one, if you say who created God, now you're in a God-believing conversation. You have to at least establish that you believe in God before you start talking about any origins of God. I can't say that there's no such thing as a distant star. And then I convince someone that there is a distant star, that this is a reality. And then they begin to say, well, how did it get there? Well, now we're talking about the star exists. Second thing, if that is the logic, it has to be across the board for it to be true and acceptable. So if you're saying that, well, who created God can be an argument for whether God exists, then who created the universe can be an argument for whether the universe exists. So it's self-defeating in its logic. But nonetheless, it also is not even connected. Who created God has nothing to do with whether God exists or not. Whether God was created, whether God was not created, or who created him has absolutely nothing to do with the fact that he exists. That's like saying, okay, who created this mouse? Okay, that has nothing to do with the fact this mouse exists. If I know who created this mouse, if I don't know who created this mouse, if the mouse was created or if it just popped into existence, that is completely irrelevant. There's a technique that's used in psychology where somebody will try to just throw out a nonsensical point, because if you can't answer that point, then they're trying to trick you into thinking, well, then this other point is not true, even though those points don't match. So who created this mouse has nothing to do with the fact that this mouse exists. From what I know of God, there is no creator of God, because God stands outside of time and developed time. However, you could argue that point, and it's a pointless argument to get into because it doesn't prove or disprove anything with regards to the conversation of whether there is a God. We do know that it is scientifically impossible for there not to be a God, because we have existence. It's scientifically impossible for existence to have not had an origin, and it's scientifically impossible for that origin to have started, because it would have had to have violated the laws of thermodynamics, and we've never observed it ever violated except for by the intervention of a self-conscious entity. Now that's supported because many astrophysicians have looked into string energy and they found computerized code. And so the majority of scientists today do believe in the possibility, the strong possibility of simulation theory, which is a belief in a God, developer of the original layer of simulation. Not to mention that the biggest contributors to science and history, including Darwin, including Einstein, were all believers in God. So those who don't believe in God really don't hold any place in the historical scientific communities. But I'm not going to go over that point because that's an irrelevant point. I'm going to stick by the points that they have found inside of string theory, patterns that match our programming code, and it's just not observable science. And so that means it's not science. And so if someone believes that existence, reality started without a self-conscious entity, then they've stepped out of science. I'm sorry. It's just nowhere has that been observed. And we've always observed it the other way, always. Every recorded incident in history has some violation of the laws of thermodynamics by a self-conscious entity. So I'm gonna lay that argument down, because if someone wants to play around with that, then there's no point on talking with them. We'll just go to those who are intelligent and humble and can move forward from that.